You're listening to the Rise Above podcast, the only podcast on the planet with a mission to help you live a free and uncommon life. Here's your host, Greg Smith.
Yes. Welcome. Thanks again for joining me today. This is the Rise Above podcast, and you are listening to episode number 10. I'm your host, Greg Smith, and I believe if you desire uncommon freedom in business and in life, it starts with creating a champion's mindset from within. Now, today's episode is called How to Connect in a Fake World, Help More People, and Have Real Relationships. And this really started because I train a lot of people, and we also help a lot of people within the organizations and businesses that I am a part of. And when I originally started, social media was not even a thing. I started as an entrepreneur in 2007. At that point, Facebook, I don't even know if Facebook was out yet necessarily, but I do know that whenever Facebook came out, I was not able to have it because I didn't go to college. And in the early years of Facebook, the only way that you could have a Facebook account was to have a college email. And that's because Facebook originally linked college networks together. Go watch Social Network at some point, but that's not the point. The point is this: as social media has taken hold over the last decade or so, what we have seen is the rise to the fakeness of life. Now, before social media, people could do this because they would just hide within their four walls. Nobody would ever really know what was going on. And you would just put on this fake facade as you would leave your house, as if everything was fine and dandy. And now people do it on social media because social media has become this little highlight reel of everybody's perfect little moments in their life. And as you've heard in past episodes, part of my purpose and, deeply rooted wants and needs in life is to have rich and loving relationships, because as I've talked about in the past, you have nothing left when it's all said and done. Money's gone, homes are gone. Like, if you take all of that away, the only thing you're left with are the relationships that you have harnessed over the years. And that's it. And so I want to have a healthy relationship bank. And so what I've seen is a lot of fake connections, a lot of fake things that are happening on social media. And I want to really give you some tips today on how to connect with people and truly make an impact on lives and have some real relationships. Because I'll tell you that I have seen people, I'm in business with people that have very large social networks, and they actually have real relationships even online through those connections. And a lot of people wouldn't think that would be possible, but I experienced an event not too long ago that totally changed my paradigm, even though I knew it already, but it changed my paradigm probably forever. And so one of the keys to really being able to help people on a large scale, because we talked about this in, I believe, episode 8. We talked about how to become financially successful, how to help and serve people. We talked about how money is a game and essentially is about providing value. One of the ways that you can provide value is by connecting with people and understanding how that works. And so in this world of social media, and Lord knows I have 3 kids. My boy, boys are boys, but my daughters, that's something I'm really looking down the road, is just like, what's even going to be out there at that time, and how do I help them truly know that most of the stuff out there is just fake. It's crazy what people do with filters and even these editing apps and stuff. But anyways, a lot of the things out there that you see are just fake. And I'll tell you that what I've come to learn is that some of the people that are most relatable and the people who have the largest following of like diehard followers and friends and things like that. And I consider myself very blessed with the friendships that I have. And I think, I've gotten feedback that a lot of that comes because I'm real and I try to be just truly relevant to the person. I don't really ever put a facade on. I'm going to tell you what I think, and not in a bad way. I'm going to tell you why I think it, or I'm going to tell you the problems that I've gone through. I mean, at this point, if you've listened, to episodes 1 through 9 up into this, I mean, you know that I once choked out my gym teacher. You know that I was made fun of in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. I mean, pretty much all of those grades until I learned to stick up for myself. Like, you've heard that story. You've heard my wrestling story. You may have heard how I've done many different business ventures prior to my first like real successful business venture, and I have failed at many, many things. I mean, like, you have heard some of the stories that really my kids won't even hear until later on in life, to where it makes sense for them. But I've shared those with you to be able to relate and really just put myself out there. And I do that because you can't help other people if you're not willing to share what you've gone through, or if you're not willing to share the mess that you went through to get to where you are. There was a saying I heard one of my old mentors used to say, your mess is your message. Your mess is your message. And the thing is, some people know this really well. If you talk to most Christians, if you hear their quote unquote testimony, they're going to share the mess or before Christ. They call it, BC. One of my buddies calls it. He's like, hey, me before BC was this. And he talks about his drug addictions and, certain stuff, that he was into. And he shares that, and that helps him really connect with people who may be having those same issues, right? You have former drug addicts, non-Christians, just drug addicts, or former alcoholics, that share their testimony by sharing just all the crap that they went through. Entrepreneurs do the same thing. I've shared that with you. Like, for me, there's been many trials and tribulations to get to where I am. You've heard a lot of those. And the other one that I want to touch on that I think is huge is mothers. One thing that I've really seen just lately, we had some friends who have gone through a miscarriage, and my mother went through 3 of those in between my sister and I. And as weird as it is, like, I don't know. Anyways, it's thank God I'm alive. But I guess it was meant to be. But Stephanie and I too went through a miscarriage in between Samuel and Charlotte. And it wasn't until we went through that miscarriage and then we shared it, because we we're kind of an open book, and that's what I want to encourage you to do on social media is if you're on there, this by the way, this is if you're trying to attract people. This is if you're trying to help people and serve people. But you can do this at a Christmas party, or whatever it is. Like, the people who aren't able to connect with people is because they don't really share their true feelings, and they don't really share their true thoughts. They stay guarded. And I want to tell you that when you stay guarded, you just, you keep to yourself. You're helping nobody at all. And so you got to put yourself out there and be vulnerable a little bit. And Stephanie and I, through the miscarriage that we had, we were vulnerable. We had prematurely announced that we were, that she was pregnant. When you're married, you say we were pregnant, but Stephanie was pregnant. We announced that early, because our first child, Samuel, went very smooth. We didn't have any issues. So, a miscarriage was the last thing on our mind. But through that story, we got helped because we shared, and other people were willing to share what they went through too. And it was through that I really realized that a lot of people don't talk about that. It's also, a lot of people don't talk about money. You've heard my podcast, you've heard my show. I talk about money. When I grew up, you don't talk about money. But the thing is, money is an issue. And if you don't talk about it, you can't fix it. just like miscarriages are an issue. And if you don't talk about it, you can't fix it. Another thing for Stephanie and I, we went through 2 years in our mid 20s trying to get pregnant for the first time with Samuel. It took 2 years to get pregnant with him. And that was such a struggle for us. I mean, I remember Stephanie feeling like just incomplete as a woman. She wasn't sure if she was ever going to be able to bear children. And then, it came down to me and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so then I got tested and I tested, super terrific. They actually wrote on my paper for my sperm count and mobility, TMI, but whatever. And, then Stephanie got tested. Everything was good with her, and we couldn't figure it out. But it was so frustrating because we were doing everything right.
Are you someone who wants to live life on your own terms? Do you dream of having more time to spend doing the things you love? Then download your copy of The Freedom Formula absolutely free at www.riseabovepodcast.com. What are you waiting for? Go to www.riseabovepodcast.com to get your free copy of The Freedom Formula.
But in the end, it wasn't the right timing. And after 2 years, really what happened was we started talking about adopting. And it was when we started talking about adopting, it was within like 10 days, Stephanie got pregnant. And my personal belief was she put so much pressure on herself that she had an environment that was not conducive to bearing children because she was highly stressed out. And that was all she was thinking about. And she was so worried because I do believe that your thoughts have power. And the way that you can know that, this isn't foo-foo stuff, the way that you know that, and I can tell you as a competitor and as a wrestler and as a jiu-jitsu guy and doing competitions, that when you get so nervous for a competition or, a ball game, whatever, if it's a sport that you're doing or maybe it's public speaking, you get so nervous that your stomach, like you can either have diarrhea or your stomach just really hurts or you're so nervous you can't eat. Well, guess what? That's your thoughts having power over your body. Those are thoughts affecting your nervous system. And so I believe that same thing is really what happened when we were trying to get pregnant with Samuel in the first place. So that was kind of a diversion, but, wasn't even going to share that story today. But, for us, that was one story that those were two things, the miscarriage and then the 2 years to getting pregnant. My goodness, man, when we started sharing that, it was amazing how many other people we could help through the same situations because they didn't want to talk about it until we shared about it. I have a friend that went through a miscarriage and he didn't know that we went through one. But right when it happened, I shared my story with him, and I know that it made a major difference because we could talk about it and I could relate to him. And I let him know that I could relate to him through that story. And so, moms far too often, like my wife, Steph, she actually runs a Facebook group called Mom Grit. And in that group, probably the number one thing that they talk about is either breastfeeding or lack of sleep, and the moms in there are ever supporting because they're real, they're raw, and they're relevant. And they share the real stuff. And it really, this whole thing really makes me think about two people particularly. One I'm in business with two different businesses, and her name's Michelle. And Michelle has an Instagram following of, 224,000 at this point. And people always wondered, because when I originally met her and went in business with her, she had 30,000 followers, which is substantial as it sits, but 224,000, it's almost 10x what she had, when we got to know each other. And people were always wondering what she was doing, and they couldn't see past the chaos. And they were like, what is she doing? How is she so successful with her Instagram following, which, ultimately translated into success in our business? And they were like, what is she doing? Other people were looking and trying to figure it out. And what they couldn't figure out, and many people still haven't figured out, so I'm going to tell you right now, is she's always been real and she's always been relevant. I mean, she literally will talk about zits on her face and she'll show them on social media. And for some people, they're like, oh my gosh, I would never do that. Well, that's fine. But the people, and if you think about it, because I know a lot of people that follow a lot of different people, most people like to either follow celebrities, number one, and that's because they have this make believe that there's this perfect life out there and there isn't, so they try to like live through that, or they like to follow people like this group called Cat and Nat, the two ladies, or other people that are just literally just raw, like they just share anything and everything, and that's because people want to see through the crap. People know now that lives are not perfect, and they don't want to see that all the time. They want to know that other people's lives, can suck a little bit too. Like the other day, I shared on my Instagram as I was getting ready to do something business wise. I literally get Stephanie yelling at me to take one of my two of my children because she had poop in the tub. And I shared that, and some people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you'd share that. But you know what? I had such a response from it because, if you're a parent, who hasn't had poop in the tub before? I mean, and if you haven't, God bless you. Obviously God is blessing you, but poop's one of those things that just happen in this household. So anyways, there are people like Michelle who have just shared the realness and the rawness. And, another friend of mine who I'm also partnered with, her name's Amy, and Amy did the same thing. She literally would share, all these different things. And now she's a mother and she's sharing motherhood stuff, kind of what I was just talking about. And, all of that is helping more people because they're showing the realness and the rawness to life. And so for you, I want to encourage you, whatever it is, whatever journey or path that you're on, I want you to get really good at sharing it with people. Just, whatever thoughts you've had to overcome. I know people who could really help the world if they would share certain things that they're just too afraid to share. Like, I have certain people who, grew up in divorced households, and, they are, better parents because they went through some stuff. This isn't to say divorce, whatever your feelings are about divorce, but they went through there's more to the divorce than, just divorce. And so they just had some bad childhoods, and they saw certain things in the relationship that now make them a better husband or a better wife because of what they went through. And I can tell you that they would help many more people if they would share some of those things, and they would share that journey with people and not be afraid, because other people need to hear that, or other people have gone through it and they need to understand that other people have gone through the same thing that they've gone through or are going through, and that they've came out on the other side. And I'm here to tell you that if you specifically are going through something today, you too can come out on the other side. There's somebody else who has gone through what you are going through. I mean, there's almost like a 100% chance that somebody is going through the same exact thing that you're going through today as you listen to this, and they have came out on the other side. I promise you. So look for that person. Look for a story of somebody like that and know that there's hope. And so if you have something on your heart that you want to share, I want to highly encourage you today to start sharing that with people, and understand that nobody wants to hear about the perfect life. And really what they need to hear is about the imperfect life. They need to hear about how somebody went through the trenches, how somebody just, got through absolute hell and came out on the other side and succeeded. Those are the stories. That's why, the stories of rags to riches, everybody hears those things, or they hear about Jeff Bezos, working in his little office and now he's the richest man in the world, or Zuckerberg and his little, those are the stories that people, adhere to. Those are called the hero's journeys because they can relate to it and it gives them hope. And so maybe you have overcome something as simple as literally being able, if you're a mother, being able to get your child to actually nurse from you, like that's a big deal. I can tell you, I have 3 kids. Maybe you are the sleep wizard that I call my wife, and you have something that you can help other women, change their lives because you have tips to be able to help kids get to sleep better. Or maybe you've overcome certain physical limitations or, weight loss or whatever it is. You got to share it. So that's my tip for today, is really just, I want to encourage you to start being more real. I want to encourage you to understand that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share your thoughts and maybe your fears a little bit. Like, I think far too many people try to hold these positions of power and, stature, and they just want to prop themselves up and try to look perfect. But at the end of the day, we know you're not perfect. We know not everybody is, nobody's perfect. And so share the crap with people and let them know, because that's what's going to connect you with them. And that's what's going to allow you to truly touch somebody's heart and change their life. So that's it for today. Thank you so much again for joining me for episode number 10 of the Rise Above podcast. And as always, if you got value out of today, I would love if you just take a quick second and hop on over to iTunes, or maybe you're on it right now, swipe over, give me a rating and review. I always literally will read the reviews every single day. So yeah, I love getting 5 stars. I had one person give me a 4-star. Not really sure what I can do to get that 5th star from them, but they didn't write me a review, so I'm not really sure. But whatever, stars are stars. But what I really care about is, what did you get out of the episode, if anything? And if you did, I'd love you to drop me a line over in the ratings and reviews. So with that, until next episode, take care. God bless.
This is the podcastfactory.com.